Okay, guys, so I don't even know what is happening. I do what I normally do. I go on YouTube, I search up giraffe neck mark, and the first video, it's like, oh my god, Starling Marte, Mark Canha, and Eduardo Escobar signing with the New York Mets. Like, my jaw just dropped this morning because I'm a Mets fan, and it was crazy. So I go to Joel Sherman's Twitter page just to see what's happening, and again it confirms oh my god. From what I can tell, Mets were willing to spend more to complete their deals. Heard, for example, Canha market was more than Escobar range, but Mets went to lots of 3-year bids for Marte. Mets went to 4. Cohen's wallet gives latitude. Dude, what? Okay, guys, so let's get into how all of this happened. So, guys, even though I think the Mets were really actually trying to get all these 3 guys, I think a big part of it had to do with Steve Cohen literally going off on Twitter, and this quote is just gonna blow your minds. He said, "I'm not happy this morning. I've never seen such unprofessional behavior exhibited by a player's agent. I guess words and promises don't matter." And so what that's referring to is basically the Mets were told that they would get the last qualifying offer to give Steven Matz, and they never did. So I guess Steve Cohen took to Twitter, which I really wouldn't do, because I mean other players could see that could have an effect on where they go. Like if they went to the Mets, that could have a big effect. So, but I do think this was a big part of fueling Steve Cohen's fire to really go out and get some players. So, guys, I'm sitting in my car last night. We were at Publix. I'm sitting in my car waiting for my parents to get back with our groceries, and I go on YouTube and I see Wardy NYM, Wardy New York Mets, his latest video, and it's a live stream of how Eduardo Escobar signed with the Mets. And I got really curious because I hadn't seen Eduardo Escobar on the Mets wish list, and so I went to his Fangraphs page, and actually his last year was pretty legit. 146 games, 28 homers, 253 average, 314 on base percentage, 472 slugging, and a 3.0 WAR. And honestly, those numbers don't jump off the page, but for 20 million 2 years, I think Eduardo Escobar, that was a really great pickup by the Mets, just because he could be like a good stopgap for the Mets whenever Brett Beatty comes up, or even Mark Vientos. So Eduardo Escobar was a great pickup by the Mets. All right, guys. So next is Mark Canha. So I'm sitting on my couch waiting for dinner, and I'm watching my favorite show, Chopped, one of my favorite shows. But I go on my phone, go onto YouTube again, and I see another Wardy New York Mets live stream, but this one's about Mark Canha. So I go on it, I watch it for a little bit, and it turns out that Mark Canha was signed by the Mets for 2 years, $26.5 million. And I'm like, oh my god, that's a great pickup for any outfield position and possibly first base. So I go on his Fangraphs, and last year he played 141 games, 17 homers, 231 average, 358 on base percentage, 387 slugging, and 2.6 WAR, which honestly, those numbers, this guy is so underrated. Those numbers are very solid, and I think that the Mets really got a steal with him and Eduardo Escobar, and these two were just mind-blowing for me because none of these guys were on the Mets wish list. So the Mets did a really good job with that to, I guess, keep that away from everybody, so it kind of be a surprise to them. It was so good. All right, let's go to Wardy New York Mets. What? So as you guys saw in the last scene, the Mets also got Starling Marte? Like, what just happened? So I wake up this morning, I get out of bed, go on YouTube, and I search up Warrior New York Mets again, because he's one of my favorites, and I see Starling Marte, and my stomach just drops. I'm so happy. And I'm like, how do the Mets get three very solid players under 12 hours? And so it's just insane. Like, what just happened? So I go to Starling Marte's Fangraphs page, and these numbers are insane. Like, so he played 120 games last season, 12 homers, 310 average. That would go great atop the lineup with Nimmo and all those other guys. Anyway, 383 on base percentage, 5.5 WAR, and 47 stolen bases. So this guy, Mets got him for 4 years, $78 million, I think, and that's such a great deal. Like the Mets, I think they spent a little bit over 120 million for three very solid guys, and so they've basically filled the hole for third base and their whole outfield. So now all they have to do the Mets, all they have to do is really go after a ton of starting pitching, like 2 or 3 starters, and bring back Javier Baez. In my book, that is a perfect off season for them. And I say maybe bring Javi Baez back, maybe somehow get Max Scherzer, Marcus Stroman. Like, it's so good for the Mets that they were actually able to do this. And I'm so excited with how it's shaping up right now with Steve Cohen, Sandy Alderson, and the Mets' new general manager, Billy Epler. And it's just so good, and I'm so thrilled as a Mets fan. Okay, guys, so obviously this whole video, honestly, it's my first video, and I think I actually did pretty well. This whole video, it was really about just how the Mets did so good signing these 3 guys, and I couldn't be happier as a Mets fan. I think Starling Marte, he brings speed that the Mets have not had in a while. He brings great defense in the outfield. He's got a rocket of an arm. Eduardo Escobar, he can play anywhere. He's a great utility guy. The ball jumps off of his bat. And Mark Canha, so good at getting on base. I mean, his average isn't too far up there, but he walks so much, and I think all 3 of these guys will give the Mets great assets for 2022, and I could not be happier for the Mets in 2022. If they can just get Javier Baez and bring in a couple starting pitchers, I couldn't be happier. See you guys later.